AC. In my life, I have had numerous occasions where I've discussed religion with local Christians who've attempted to add me to their fold. Being an open-minded, critical thinker, I have had no issue discussing the topic with them. However, one thing has always frustrated me. They will not put the Bible down when talking about their faith, even when I ask them directly. Everything they say is related to or directly from the Bible. Is this common in religion? If I could somehow get them to put aside the Holy Book, would I be more successful in arguing my point, which is that unfortunately there likely is no God, and we die and that's the end of it? I figure that they're going to try to convert me. I am free to express my view as well. They initiated the conversation, not me. Anyways, thanks for answering and keep up the good work. All right, AC, thank you for this. God, there's a lot of layers here, of course, but I think what I want to say on this is that we invest, I can't talk in a lot of detail about this because I don't know, as much as I would like to know about this, but symbols and icons and books, these things that sort of are symbolic of our beliefs or our idols, these are important to us. These, there's a lot of words for this, but at the end of the day, it's something or some symbol that represents all kinds of concepts and beliefs and ideas that we have, good, bad, right, wrong, all over every spectrum. I can show you certain symbols and you will immediately have, certain reactions to them, visceral, emotional reactions. I can show you other symbols and other books and things, and you have nothing, or nothing would register at all because there was no significance or emotional investment at all in your life connected with those symbols or signs or books. The Bible happens to be one of the most symbolic representations of Christianity, Islam, Judaism. I mean, there's a lot in this book. There's a lot invested in this book. It's the big book. It's the holy book. It's the book with a capital B. So the Bible has a tremendous amount of cultural significance and can then therefore translate over into a tremendous amount of individual significance for individual believers who are told that the Bible is the, sort of ultimate expression or ultimate rendering of God's will and God's word. This book is exactly precisely what God said or what God wanted us to read so that we would get his, holy word and be inspired and our faith renewed or created or bolstered or whatever. And that's why you'll get people who especially, people who are trying to convert you, people who are out proselytizing. They feel so strongly about the power of this that they want to share the good news. They want to get this to you. They want you to understand this and live by the same faith and the same tenets. And they believe, of course, that by doing so, they're ensuring their place in the kingdom. And they are also doing this because they have told themselves and they believe, and I'm sure it's true, that they, for the most part, that they have a lot of compassion and caring for other people, and they want to, save them. So the Bible represents, it's sort of a thing that gets to represent all of that, right? All of those good intentions and good ideas and God and all of that gets put in there. So when you take that away or try to remove that out of the conversation, right? It's kind of like inviting somebody to a meal and then taking the food off the table. Like, what are we doing here? Like, suddenly, wait a minute. I thought we were like this is from their point of view, from the proselytizer's point of view. This is what you need. This is the thing that has all the truth in it. It's not the individual proselytizer or believer who has the ability to convince you of the truth. It's this book that does, because they believe this book is what convinced them and is the reason for their fervent, ardent belief. So they want to pass that on to you, right? So in other words, it's all invested in that. You could have the same degree of investiture in the book Dianetics or Fundamentals of Thought. Scientology books, right? Where, Hubbard was really, really big on, sell them books. You have to get the book in their hand. Now, you could say that was just a money grab or a cash grab to sell his books, but Hubbard knew that he had a way with words and that he could convince it was a numbers game. And if he could get his books into people's hands, and remember, this is back in the 50s and 60s when people predominantly read books, and they weren't online. So buying a book, having a book, especially Hubbard stressed a hardcover, big book, a weighty book, that gives it a more weight, more significance, more importance. And for people who believe that things are important and are symbols of their faith and contain all the holy words of their faith, and that this book is the thing that's going to convince you, it's not, I'm drawing the Dianetics comparison here to show that it's not just Christians who do this. You could do this with the Koran. You could do this with the Torah. You could do this with any other holy book. I'm sure there's Sanskrit books or Buddhist books or, those kind of things. So it's just a matter, I'm obviously sitting here talking all about symbols and icons and things and how we invest in them. So I guess I just wanted to comment on that part of it because it was such a prominent part of your question here. And with such people, I would say you're going to have a real hard time separating them from that book because there's a view that has been expressed, in the atheist Christian battleground that I see online all the time. There are people who have asserted that that there are some Christians, not all. I'm not painting with a broad brush here, but there are certainly more than a few who are more Biblists than they are Christians. In other words, the Bible is their thing more so than Christ or even that whole resurrection and the faith and just having this kind of idea of personal resurrection or salvation and stuff. They go way, way, way more into it, and the Bible becomes this thing of exaggerated super importance. So maybe that's some of what you're running into there too. But people need their symbols, and the fact is that most people who are out proselytizing are doing so because of a fervor that they feel more than the knowledge that they have. It's an emotional thing. It's much more so than it's an intellectual thing. There's a little bit of knowledge. I got some Bible quotes for you. I've got some stories to tell you. But mostly what I want to get across to you is this represents this incredible feeling, this ardent fervor, this love we have for Christ, this love we have for God, this love we have for you. It's just so wonderful, right? And that when they're talking that way, that's when you're really at the core of this, this sort of euphoric love, admiration, fervor kind of feeling that is really what's kind of driving a lot of that. That's what I've seen, at least, and experienced. I haven't read widely of this, but what I've seen and experienced, that's what I can sort of comment on about it. I hope I'm not painting with too broad a brush in talking about this. I know that there are people who have other intentions and ideas when they're out proselytizing, but this is what I've seen and run into, and certainly what I think you're describing in your question here. And as far as arguing back, argue away, but realize that they're not, based on everything I just said, right, and everything else I know about this, these are folks who are not believers because they reasoned their way into it. So attempting to reason them out of it is probably not going to get you anywhere. And this is the constant battle that goes on in the atheist world that I'm pretty much just tired of at this point because it's just so exhausting, that people, come out of these faiths or beliefs and think they're going to argue people out of it. And it just doesn't really work that way because that's not why people get into it. And it's not why people get out of it. And that's, in the most part. I'm not saying that there isn't anybody who never reasoned their way out of religion, but generally speaking, it has a lot more to do with emotional breaks and emotional ties and social hierarchies and stuff like that than it has to do with reasoning and applying a lot of intellectual thought to the religious process. So anyway, I don't know. Let me know what you think about that answer.